Okay, so good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Melissa Balbuena, and today I will discussing the emotions and mood. After studying this chapter, you should be able to differentiate between emotions and moods. Second, discuss whether emotions are rational and what function they serve. Third, describe the validity of potential sources of emotions and mood. Fourth, show the impact emotional labor has on employees. And fifth, describe effective events theory and its applications. And sixth, contrast the evidence for and against the existence of emotional intelligence. Seventh, identify the strategies for emotion regulation and their likely effects. And the last one is apply concept about emotions and moods to specific OB issues or organizational behavior issues. Why were emotions excluded from OB study? Historically, emotions in the workplace were thought to be detrimental. Managers tried to create emotion-free organization. This thinking is changing. Some emotions hinder performance, some are neutral, and some are constructive. Historically, the study of organization behavior has not given much attention to emotions. Emotions were typically seen as irrational, for managers tended to make the workplace emotion-free. Often, managers viewed emotion as disruptive to the workplace and therefore a hindrance to productivity. However, when thinking about emotions that could be hinder productivity, there is no doubt that workers bring their any study in organizational behavior would not be complete without considering the rules of emotion in the workplace. Affect, emotions, and moods. Affect defined as a broad range of feeling that people experience. Affect can be experienced in the form of emotions or mood. Moods can last for hours, while emotion lasts anywhere from seconds to minutes at most. This is why it's typically easier to identify emotional trigger, but difficult to pinpoint the trigger for our moods. Moods also don't have their own unique facial expression, whereas the universal emotions do. Emotion of one person can be triggered by the people around them, like sometimes it is because someone surprised them, or maybe there's have a good news or bad news. But in the mood, you can tell what things triggered you. Sometimes we are alone, but we feel that we are tired even we're not doing anything, or we feel crying without something bad happens. Like in a work, we're just doing our task, but we feel in the bad mood or in the bad shape just doing that. Or something we feel tired just looking at our task. Isama pa yung mga katrabaho natin or yung mga coworkers natin, no? Sometimes we feel tired just looking at them. Just looking at the people around you, we feel in the bad shape, we feel in the bad mood. So another example to it is the workers that needed to control their emotion or action-oriented in nature, like the doctor, the soldiers, the police, or the frontliners. They are trained to control their emotion and mood if they are in duty. Even though they feel the fear, the sadness, crying, or anything, they need to be more calm in any worse situations. No? They are trained in anger management, in emotional management, anything that needed to their work. Basic emotions, the 6 universal emotions. First is anger. Anger can be particularly powerful emotion characterized by feeling of hostility, agitation, frustration, and antagonism towards others. Anger can be played as a part in your body fight or flight response. When a threat generates feeling of anger, you may be inclined to fend off the danger and protect yourself. Anger is often displayed through your facial expressions such as frowning or glaring. No? Your body language such as taking a strong stance or turning away. Your tone of voice are changing, such as speaking gruffly or yelling. The physiological responses such as sweating or turning red. The aggressive behavior such as hitting, kicking, or throwing anything or throwing any objects. The second one is fear. Fear is the most powerful emotion that can also play an important role in the behavior of a person. When you face some sort of danger and experience fear, you go through what is known as the fight or flight response. Your muscle become tense, your heart rate and respiration increase, and your mind become more alert, priming your body to entire run from the danger or stand and fight. The expression of this type of emotions can include your facial expression, such as widening the eyes and pulling back the chins. No, your body language, such attempts to hide or flee from the threats, or you are avoiding the things or the person that you feared of. The physiological reactions, such as a rapid breathing or rapid heartbeating. The third one of emotions is the sadness. Like other emotions, sadness is something that all people experience from time to time. In some cases, people can experience prolonged and severe period of sadness that can turn into depression. Sadness can be expressed in the number of ways, including the crying, the dumb mood, lethargy, quietness, or withdrawal from the others, or distancing yourself to the others. The fourth one is happiness. Happiness is one defined as a pleasant emotional state that is characterized by feelings of contentment, gratification, joy, satisfaction, and well-being. This type of emotion is sometimes expressed through the facial expressions such as smiling. This was happy. The body language such as relax. Your body such as relax. Your tone of voice are upbeat or pleasant way of speaking. The fifth one is the disgust. In the disgust is another of the original 6 basic emotion described by Ekman. Disgust can be displayed in a number of ways, including the body language such as turning away from the object you disgust, physical reactions such as vomiting or retching, or the facial expressions such as wrinkling the nose and curling the upper lips. And the last one is the surprise. Surprise, this is the type of emotion can be positive or negative or neutral. As unpleasant surprise, for example, it might involve someone jumping out from behind the tree and scaring you as you walk to your car at night when you are going home from the work. And an example of pleasant surprise naman is would be arriving home to find that your closest friends have gathered to celebrate your birthday. Surprise is often characterized by the facial expressions such as raising an eyebrow, widening the eyes, and opening the mouth or gasping. The physical responses such as jumping. The verbal reactions such as yelling, screaming, or the gasping. So, yan. The basic moods, positive and negative effects. So, positive effect, moods dimension consisting of positive emotions such as excitement, enthusiasm, and elation at the high end, and boredom, depressions, and fatigue at the low end. The negative effect is the mood dimension consisting of nervousness, stress, and anxiety at the high end, and contentedness, calmness, and serenity at the low end, or the low negative effect. So, experiencing the mood and emotion. Positive moods are somewhat more common than negative moods. The positive offset as zero input. Most people experience a mildly positive mood. So, the function of emotions and moods. The emotion and rational. This is the explanation. Emotions are critical to rational thoughts. They help us understand the world around us. Emotion and ethics. The explanation is, they said that new research suggests that the ethical behavior may be based to some degree on emotions and feelings. The sources of emotions and the personality. First is some people experience certain moods and emotion more frequently than others because we are different. We have a different personality. So, affect intensity, experiencing the same emotion with different intensities. Time of the day. People vary in their moods by time of the day. So, day of week, people tend to be in their best moods on the weekend. So, I was showing the graph of time of the day. This is the graph of time of the day. Time of the day, there are people whose mood changing due to time. Like us, no? There's have a time in the day that we feel sleepy. We feel tired or being hyped. For example, as a student, we feel tired and sleepy in this kind of hours. No? Our moods are changing maybe because nasanay tayong natutulog ng ganitong oras, or there have something in our mind causing us to feel the tiredness or the sleepy, or maybe our body is not feeling well. So the second graph is shown the day of the week. No, people, especially the workers, they are pushing themselves to be in a good mood on the weekend so that they can enjoy their free time and they for themselves without thinking the stressful things at their works. So this graph are shown the day of week mood effect. No. So more sources. The more sources is the weather. Weather no impact according to the research. They said that weather is no impact in the moods or emotion. But for me, as I experience, weather can be affect my mood. Like this time, sobrang init. This init changed my mood. At nakakabismo talaga ang init. So, it can affect my mood. But I don't know the other if their mood are changing because of the weather. Or maybe nasa tao na din. Because there's a person who loves the temperature, the hot temperature, or the init. And there's a people naman who love cold temperatures or ang malamig na temperatura. Stress increase stress, worsen the mood. So when the stress become unbearable, it can lead to a nervous breakdown. Studies have shown that stress affects both your mind and your body. Long-term stress can lead to structural changes in the brain, which can affect your memory and lead to the difficult concentrating in decision making. So, yan. The next one is social activities. Physical, informal, and Epicurean activities increase positive mood. So, social activities, positive mood significantly improve when engaging in numerous activities. Negative moods improve during social activities as well as party and hanging out events, but was fairly consistent across other activities. Stronger mood activities relation were found after controlling for autonomy and activity engagement. So the second one is sleep. Lack of sleep increased negative emotions and impaired decision making. So think about how one bad night's sleep or not enough sleep make you feel the next day. So for many of us, we're grumpy and irritable. We find it difficult to concentrate and we have no energy. So we can overreact when things don't go on our way, no? And we find we're less excited if something good happens. So it is easy to see how ongoing sleeplessness can be a worry. The next slide is even more sources. The exercise mildly enhance positive mood. So exercise promote chemical in brain that improve your mood and make you more relaxed. Specifically, the brain releases feel-good chemicals called endorphins. Thought the body, that was the sweat, the sweat that body releasing if we do exercise. Physical activities reduce anxiety and depressed mood and enhance self-esteem. And now in this quarantine, there's a lot of people who are doing the exercise and they have a high self-esteem right now. Like I have a friend, she's voluptuous. She's voluptuous, but right now she's so sexy, and because of that exercise that she doing, her self-confidence go up. And so that my friend do an exercise and she's right now I have a high self-esteem. Her self-esteem increased because of the exercise she do. That's why I agree that exercising enhances or increasing the self-esteem of a person. So age. Okay, older people experience negative emotion less frequently. So on average, however, emotional experience become more positive and less negative with age as a result of changes in one environment rather. So including how social partners interact with other adults, as well as the behavior and cognitive emotions, regulation strategies that become more prominent and effective with greater. So the last one on my report is the sex. We're not talking about the literal na sex here, So we're talking about the sex, the woman, the male or female. Women show greater emotion, the greater emotional expression, experience more emotion intensely, and display more frequent expression of emotions. So, like the lesson we talked before, that we discussed, that Dr. Castor discussed before, she also explained that the woman is more emotional than the man, and sometimes women are showy to their emotion than a man. That's why if you are a professional worker and you feel the emotion like mad, sad, or whatever negative emotion is that, you need to get out into social media for a meantime, because it was cost you a trouble. Maybe it can cause a trouble in your work, in your workplace, or in your coworkers. So you need to control yourself or distance yourself to social media platform to avoid the trouble that you can cause if you are in the bad shape or you are in the bad mood. So that's all po. So that's all for my report, the emotion and the moods, and Miss Kyla Aguila will be continued on this topic. So thank you very much po.
Good day everyone, I'm Carla Aguila, and here is the continuation of our report. Emotional labor. Emotional labor, an employee's expression of organizationally desired emotions during interpersonal transactions at work. This means emotional labor is the process of managing feelings and expression to fulfill the emotional requirements of a job. This includes analysis and decision-making in terms of expression of emotion, whether actually felt or not, as well as its opposite suppression of emotions that are felt but not expressed. Also, emotional labor is most prototypically in jobs that require service with a smile, or any frontline, public-facing job interacting with clients, customers, and patients. At times, employees may have to emotionally labor with coworkers and supervisor to get their work done. To perform emotional labor, employees may use deep acting to modify their inner emotions, like pump themselves up before going out on the work floor. Second, emotional dissonance is when an employee has to project one emotion while simultaneously feeling another. This means emotional dissonance is a feeling of unease that occurs when someone evaluates an emotional expression as a threat to his or her identity. In many jobs, there is an implied agreement on the types of emotion that should be expressed. For example, waitresses are supposed to be friendly and cheerful whether they are currently feeling that emotion or not. When employees don't feel the emotion they are required to express, they may be experience emotional dissonance. This can lead to burnout and frustration with the job. To summarize these two, emotional labor is displaying emotion because your job requires you to do so, while emotional dissonance is the tension between your displayed and felt emotion. Next is felt versus displayed emotion. Felt emotion, the individual actual emotion. This means felt emotion are defined simply as the emotion that a person actually feels. For example, imagine that you at a meeting and your boss announces that you have won the Employee of the Month award. Your felt emotion, what you truly feel, might be happiness and surprise. On the other hand, if you were expecting to be the winner on this award, but then you did not, then your felt emotion might be sadness or anger. Displayed emotion, the learned emotion that the organization requires worker to show and considers appropriate in a given job. This means displayed emotion are defined as the emotion that a person displays because it's expected or required for their job. In other words, these are emotions that you would show outwardly in order to act appropriately at work. It's important to note that display emotion are learned and not innate. Using the same example as before, even though you might be angry or sad that you didn't win with the Employee of the Month award, you smile, act happy, and congratulate your coworkers for winning it instead of frowning and acting mopey. Here, your display emotion is happiness even though you actually felt or sad. Next is surface acting, hiding one's true emotion. Surface acting is the concept of having to show an emotion even when you don't truly feel that way. For example, you might fake a smile when you're really feeling sad. Next is deep acting, trying to change one's feelings based on display roles. This means deep acting, however, is trying to feel the emotion that you're expected to convey, meaning that you are trying to empathize with the situation rather than masking or hiding your emotions. For example, you would be deep acting if you really try to make yourself feel happy for your coworker who won the Employee of the Month prize. Affective events theory. Affective events theory, employees react emotionally to things that happen to them at work, and this reaction influences their job performance and satisfaction. So, a model called Effective Event Theory, or AET, has increased our outstanding of the links. AET demonstrates the employees react emotionally to things that happen to them at work, and that this reaction influences their job performance and satisfaction. Affective event theory can also have result from positive happening on the job. For example, if an employee reaches a specific goal and is given a free lunch, the result is that they are filled with positive emotion. This positive emotion can be the transfer to their work interaction with co-workers. Affective events theory also provide us with valuable insight into the role emotion play in primary organizational outcomes of job satisfaction and job performance. Summary of affective events theory. First, emotion provides valuable insight into understanding employee behavior. The model demonstrates how workplace hassles and uplifts influence employees' performance and satisfaction. Second, employees and managers shouldn't ignore emotion and the events that cause them, even when they appear to be minor because they are accumulate. Affective events theory graph. So this graph states that work events trigger positive or negative emotional reactions to which employees' personalities and moods predispose them to respond with greater or lesser intensity. Emotions influence performance and satisfaction variables such as organizational citizen behavior, organizational commitment, level of effort, intention to quit, and workplace deviance. Emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, a person's ability to perceive emotion in the self and others, understand the meaning of these emotions, regulate one's emotion in a cascading model. Emotional intelligence is a growing area of study and becoming increasingly important in the understanding of how individuals behave. Intelligent Emotional intelligence is a pooling in one's understanding of emotion and their impact on behavior. Individuals who are emotionally intelligent will have a strong sense of self-awareness, recognizing their own emotion when experienced. They are also able to detect emotions others by understanding their own emotion and those of others. They can manage emotional cues and information to make decisions. Emotional intelligence example. Every day, countless people use empathy and understanding to handle social interactions at work. For instance, in an office meeting, when one person speaks, others listen. This happens spontaneously, and such behaviors are examples of emotional intelligence in the workplace. So, here is the cascading model of emotional intelligence. This model states that people who know their own emotions and are good at reading emotional cues are most likely to be effective. Emotional intelligence on trial. The case for intuitive appeal. It makes sense. L predicts criteria that matter, positively correlated to high job performance. Studies suggest that emotional intelligence is neurologically based. The case against emotional intelligence is too vague a concept. Emotional intelligence can be measured. Emotional intelligence is so closely related to intelligence and personality that it is not unique when those factors are controlled. So this means that emotional intelligence plays a very important role in job performance. However, the jury is still out on the role emotional intelligence plays in effectiveness in organization. The case for emotional intelligence is based on the fact that it makes sense and appeals to our intuitive thinking. It tends to predict things that matter and are positively correlated to high job performance. Many studies have shown that emotional intelligence is neurologically based and thus helpful in predicting behavior. However, emotional intelligence has its critics, as the concept can be seen as too vague and not easily measured. Since it is so closely related to intelligence and personality theories, it is not seen as unique when those factors are controlled. Emotion regulation. Emotion regulation, identifying and modifying the emotion you feel. Effective emotion regulation techniques include acknowledging emotional responses to situation and venting. Emotional self-regulation or emotion regulation is the ability to respond to the ongoing demands of experience with the range of emotions in a manner that is socially tolerable and sufficiently flexible to permit spontaneous reaction as well as the ability to delay spontaneous reaction as needed. Emotion regulation involves identifying and modifying the emotion you feel. Research on effective emotion regulation techniques is ongoing, but studies show that acknowledging rather suppressing our emotion responses to situations and re-evaluating events after they occur can be effective, as can open expression of emotions or venting. There are numerous applications of emotions and moods. This includes selection of employees, decision-making, and creativity. So, selection. Employers should consider emotional intelligence a factor in hiring for jobs that demand a high degree of social interaction. Decision-making. Positive emotion can increase problem-solving skills and help us understand and analyze new information. Creativity. Positive moods and feedback may be increased creativity. Motivation, leadership, negotiation, and customer service are also work outcomes that are impacted by emotion and moods. and it is important for manager to understand the connection. So motivation, promoting positive moods may give a more motivated workforce. Leadership, emotion help convey messages more effectively. Negotiation, emotion may impair negotiator performance. And lastly, customer service. Customers catch emotion for employees called emotional contagion. Contagion. Even more, OB application of emotion and moods. Job attitude. Employee emotions at work get carried home by rarely carry over the next day. Deviant workplace behavior. Those who feel negative emotion are more likely to engage in deviant behavior at work. Safety and injury at work. Bad moods can contribute to injuries on the job. Job attitude can influence our home life but don't always get carried out back to the workplace. However, deviant workplace behavior are often the result of negative emotions and significantly impact the workplace. Negative emotion can also lead to increased injuries at work. Implication for managers. Recognize that emotions are natural part of workplace and good management does not mean creating an emotion-free environment. To foster creative decision-making, creativity, and motivation in employees and models positive emotions and such as mood as authentically possible. In the service sector, encourage positive display of emotion which make customer feel more positive and thus improve customer service interaction and negotiation. Manager who understand the role of emotion and moods will significantly improve their ability to explain and predict their coworkers and employees' behavior. In summary, moods and emotion are important to study of organizational behavior. Also, they are natural expressions and managers should not try to completely control the employees' emotions, but they should be aware of the employees and not ignore emotional indicators. The more you understand the emotion of your employees, the better you will be able to predict their behavior.
Good day, ma'am. I am Abigail Magja, and the assigned topic for me is the foundation of group behavior. Defining and classifying groups. Groups are two or more individuals interacting and interdependent who have come together to achieve particular objectives. There are two types of group, the formal group and the informal group. A formal group is a designated work group with designated tasks related to its function. In the workplace, that might be the finance group or the human resource group. Formal groups are relatively permanent and usually work under a single supervisor. For example, the finance group works under the chief financial officer at an organization. There may be the groups within the finance group like the accounts payable group and the treasury group, each with their own supervisors as well. The other one is the informal group. An informal group, a group that is neither formally instructed nor organizationally determined, appears in response to the need for social contact. An informal group is one that's not organizationally determined or influenced and usually formed by the members themselves in the response to the need of social contact. The workplace might have a group of people who get together during the lunch hour to knit and help each other with yarn projects, or a group that is drawn together by cultural similarities and wants to introduce the rest of the organization to their tradition. We also have the command group, a group composed of the individuals who reported directly to a given manager. Command group is a type of a formal group. It is determined by the organization's hierarchical chart and composed of the individuals that report to a particular manager. For instance, the manager of training has a command group of his employees, the training group. The next one is the task group. Task group are those working together to complete a job or task. A task group is a type of formal group, and the term is used to describe those groups who have been brought together to complete a task. In a task group, members perform the same functions but they do not share the hierarchical command structure. For example, all the sales staff's members together subordinated to the manager of the shop. The next is the interest group, those working together to attain a specific objective with which each is concerned. An interest group is usually a informal kind of group, and it is a group of people who band together to attain a specific objective with which each member is concerned. Within an organization, this might be a group of people who come together to demand better working conditions or a better employee evaluation process. Outside of an organization, this term is frequently used in political situations to describe groups that give a point of view of voice. And the last one is the friendship group. Those brought together because they share one or more common characteristics. Friendship groups are groups of people who have come together because they share common ideas, common interests, or other similarities, like age or ethnic background. Members enjoy each other's company and often meet after work to participate in these activities. For example, a group of employees who form a friendship group may have an exercise group or a potluck lunch once a month. Why people join groups? People join groups for a number of reasons. They might be looking for affiliation, a fulfillment of social needs. Groups also add to an individual's sense of security, status, or self-esteem. Or perhaps a goal is easier to accomplish if a group of people concentrate on achieving it, pooling their talents and knowledge. Or the sheer size of the group might provide the power and influence needed to accomplish the goal. Next is the 5-stage model of group development. Bruce Tuckman, an educational psychologist, identified a 5-stage development process that most teams follow to become high-performing. He called the stages forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Forming stage, the first stage in group development, which characterized by much uncertainty. The forming stage involves a period of orientation and getting acquainted. Uncertainty is highest during this stage, and people are looking for leadership and authority. A member who asserts authority or is knowledgeable may be looked to take control. Team members are asking such questions as, what does the team offer me? What is expected of me? Will I fit in? Most interactions are social as members get to know each other. Storming stage, the second stage in group development, which characterized by intragroup conflict. The storming stage is the most difficult and critical stage to pass through. It is a period marked by conflict and competition as individuals' personalities emerge. Team performance may actually decrease in this stage because energy is put into unproductive activities. Members may disagree on team goals, and subgroups and cliques may form around strong personalities or areas of agreement. To get through this stage, members must work to overcome obstacles, to accept individuals' differences, and to work through conflicting ideas on teams' tasks and goals. Teams can get bogged down in this stage. Failure to address conflicts may result in long-term problems. Norming stage, the third stage in group development, which characterized by close relationship and cohesiveness. If teams get through the storming stage, conflict is resolved and some degree of unity emerges. In the norming stage, consensus develop around who the leader or leaders are, and individuals' members' roles. Interpersonal differences begin to resolve and a sense of cohesion and unity emerge. Team performance increases during this stage as members learn to cooperate and begin to focus on team goals. However, the harmony is precarious and if disagreements re-emerge, the team can slide back into a storming stage. For forming stage, the fourth stage in group development when the group is fully functional. In the performing stage, consensus and cooperation have been well established and the team is matured, organized, and well functioning. There is a clear and stable structure and members are committed to the team's mission. Problems and conflicts still emerge but they are dealt with constructively. The team is focused on problem solving and meeting team goals. Adjourning stage, the last and final stage in group development for temporary groups, characterized by concern with wrapping up activities rather than performance. In the adjourning stage, most of the team's goals have been accomplished. The emphasis in wrapping up final tasks and documenting the effort and results. As the workload is diminished, individual members may be reassigned to other teams and the team disbands. There may be regret as the team ends, so a ceremonial acknowledgement of the work and success of the team can be helpful. If the team is standing committee with ongoing responsibility, members may be replaced by a new people and the team can go back to a forming or storming stage and repeat the development process. Next is an alternative model, temporary groups with deadline, the punctuated equilibrium model. The punctuated equilibrium model is an alternative model for temporary groups with deadlines. It is for the groups that do not follow the 5-stage model. Temporary groups with deadlines don't seem to follow the Tuckman's 5-stage model. Studies indicate that they have their own unique sequencing actions. Their sequence of actions are second group direction, first phase of inertia, halfway point transition, major changes, second phase of inertia, and the accelerated activity. The punctuated equilibrium model characterizes groups as exhibiting long periods of inertia interspersed with brief revolutionary changes triggered primarily with their members' awareness of times and deadlines. To use the terminology of the 5-stage group development, the group begins by combining the forming and norming stage, then goes through a period of low performing, followed by the storming, and then period of high performance, and finally adjourning. Next topic is the group structure roles. Role or roles is a set of expected behavior patterns attributed to someone occupying a given position in a social unit. Within a role, there is role identity, certain attitudes and behavior consistent with a role. For example, a person may hold a various identities such as teacher, father, friend. Each role or position has its own meanings and expectations that are internalized as identity. For example, as a role as a CEO of the company involves as a set of expectations like being knowledgeable, competent, good leader to the company. The next one is the role perception. An individual's view of how he or she is supposed to act in a given situation. Role perception is our own view of how we ourselves are supposed to act in a given situation. We engage in certain types of performance based on how we feel or how we supposed to act. For example, if you were a manager in the accounting and finance area, you might see the role of the manager as being conservative, considered, and analytical. Next is the role expectation, how others believe in a person should act in a given situation. For example, a teacher may be expected not to only deliver lectures, assign homework, and prepare examinations, but also to dedicate concerns, to be honest, and to be responsible. And the psychological contract, an unwritten agreement that sets out what management expect from the employee and vice versa. Role conflict, a situation in which an individual is confronted by divergent role expectation. Conflict arises when the duties of one role conflict with the duties of another role. The most various example of role conflict is the family and work conflict, or the conflict one feels when pulled between the familial and the professional obligations. For example, a mother who is a doctor, she is therefore unable to satisfy both of these incompatible expectations, and role conflict is the result. Next is the norms. Norms is an acceptable standards of behavior within a group that are shared by the group's members. These are the classes of norms: the performance norms, appearance norms, social arrangement norms, and the allocation of resources norms. Performance norms, the group will determine what is an acceptable level of effort, product, and outcome should exist in the workplace. Let us say you enter a company and believe you should have weekend as your family time, but the company thinks you should work on weekends to help the company get ahead. You have one set of performance norms and the company has a different set. Appearance norms. The group will determine how members should dress, when they should be busily working and when they can take a break, and what kind of loyalty is shown to the leader and company. Appearance norms is related to the dress code and the code of conduct in the organization. In good organization, dress while on work, dress for sports function or for dinner are laid down. In defense services, such norms are inbuilt in the organization structure. The social arrangement norms. The group regulates interaction between its members. Some example of these norms are: shake hands when you meet someone, make direct eye contact with the person you are speaking with, and do not stand close enough to a stranger to touch arms or hips. Allocation of resources norms. The group or the organization originates the standards by which pay, new equipment, and even difficult tasks are assigned. These may include raw materials as well as working overtime or any other resource found or needed within an organization. For example, if a client needs the project by tomorrow, then anyhow it has to be completed by using available resources or doing overtime. Next is the Hawthorne studies, a series of studies undertaken by Elton Mayo at Western Electric Company's Houghton Works in Chicago between 1924 and 1932. Research conclusions: worker behavior and sentiments were closely related. Group influence norms were significant and affecting individual behavior. Group standards norms were highly effective in establishing individual worker output. Money was less a factor in determining worker output than were group standards, sentiments, and security. A full-scale appreciation of a group behavior and its influence on work groups was uncovered by the Hawthorne studies in the 1930s. What was discovered was the group established a set of behaviors. Some of these behaviors were spurred on simply because they were being observed. In other situations, the group collectively established a group norm of production, and those individuals that violated the norm by overachieving were ridiculed for not following the established, albeit unspoken norms. Next is, if you wish to be accepted by a particular group, you may conform to that group norms even before you come for it. The conformity, adjusting one's behavior to align with the norms of group. Conformity is adjusting one's behavior to align with the norms of particular group by watching and observing that group to better understand its expectation. You are using the group as a reference group. For example, in everyday society, include driving on the left side of the road or on the right side depending on the country, greeting others with a hello when we see them, forming queues at bus stop, and eating with knife and fork. Next one is a reference group. Reference group, important group to which individuals belong or hope to belong and with whose norms individuals are likely to conform. Reference group, for example, an example of a reference group is a group of people who have a certain level of affluence. For example, an individual with an annual income of 100,000 may consider himself affluent if he compares himself to those in the middle of the income strata who earns roughly 50,000 a year. Deviant workplace behavior. Antisocial actions by organizational members that intentionally violate established norms and result in negative consequences for the organization, its members, or both. Deviant workplace behavior are people act outside the group's norms. Perhaps a manager makes sexual advances to his assistants, or one co-worker spread vicious rumors about another. Workplace deviance can sometimes take a form of aggressive behavior. Thank you.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmates. I'm Victorio M. De Leon Jr. of BS Real Estate Management. My report is the continuation of report of Ms. Abigail Magadja about to the aspects of group structure. The aspect of group structures to be considered are work roles, work group size, work group norms, status relationship, and work group cohesive. So now, we are on group structure status. Status is a socially defined position or rank given to groups or group members by others. A group structure status includes group norms, culture, and status equity. All these factors, when combined, presents the status of group member. So, no matter what economic approach, we always seem to have classes of people. Status characteristic theory suggests that difference in status characteristic create status hierarchies within groups. People who lead the group, control its resources, or make enormous contribution to its success tends to have high status. People who are attractive or talented may also have high status. High status members are often given more leeway when it comes to the group norms too. And it makes them more at ease about resisting conformity. Gaya ng mga bida sa mga medical dramas. In spite of high status, members taking advantage of group norms and dominating group interactions, equity is an important part of status. The equity theory of motivation is the idea that when an individual receives for their work has a direct effect on their motivation. When applied to the workplace, it means an individual will generally aim to create a balance between what they give to the organizations compared to what they get in return. Group structure size. Social loafing. The tendency for individual to expend less effort when working collectively than when working individually. As you can see in the graph, the having the group, when the group size is bigger, so we will expect the performance will increase because they have bigger members, a bigger group size. Yan. Other conclusions. Odd number groups do better than even. Groups of 7 or 9 performs better overall than larger or smaller group. Yun. So as a rule, smaller group are faster than their larger counterparts. But when it comes to decision making, larger groups end up scoring higher marks. So, if there's a decision to be made, it's wise to poll a larger group and then give the input to a smaller group so they can act on it. A side note about size, groups with odd numbers of people tend to operate better than those that have an even number, as you can see in the presentation, as it eliminates the issue of batay when votes are taken. So ayan, makikita nyo dyan sa PowerPoint that groups of 7 or 9 tend to be an ideal size because they're still nimble like a smaller group, but they make solid decisions like a larger group does. Yan. Group structure composition. Group demography. The degree to which of a group share a common demographic attribute such as age, sex, race, educational level, or length of service in the organization, and the impact of this attribute on turnover. So, ayun, demography, organizational demography refers to the statistical study of the distribution or composition of features such as gender, age, background, ethnicity, race, and educational level. It involves studying the organizational structures, the social entity composition, majoring in the person's attribute and their behavior. Yan. Cohort. Individuals who, as part of a group, hold a common attribute. So, yan nga. A cohort is any group of people described within an organization's data. All people in the cohort must have certain things in common, such as demographic details, location, or account type. Group structure cohesive. This is the last part of aspect of group structure. Cohesive. Degree to which group members are attracted to each other and are motivated to stay in the group. Yeah. So, cohesive is related to a group's productivity. In fact, the higher the cohesiveness, the more there's a chance of low productivity if norms are not established well. But, if the group establishes solid, productive performance norms and their cohesiveness is high, then their productivity will be ultimately be high. If the group did not establish those performance norms and their cohesiveness is high, then their productivity is doomed to be low. For example, a group of high school friends getting together after school to work on a project. If they have a good set of rules and tasks divided amongst them, they'll get the project done and enjoy the work. And without those norms, they will end up eating hot pockets and playing video games until it's time to go home for a dinner. So yun, wala na magagawa. Yun. So this is yung mga bagay na nag-increase ng group cohesiveness. Number 1, make the group smaller. Encourage agreement with group goals. Increase time members spend together. Increase group status and admission difficulty. Stimulate competition with other group. Give rewards to the group, not individuals. Physically isolate to the group. So, this is the reason about the increasing of group cohesive. Group tasks. Decision making. Large group facilitate the pooling of information about complex tasks. Smaller groups are better suited to coordinating and facilitating the implementation of complex tasks. Simple routine standardized tasks reduce the requirement that group processes be effective in order for the group to perform well. So, in decision making, it is better to have a large group to have to have the pooling of information like brainstorming, because when the group share their ideas, if the group, especially if the group is when the group share ideas, so mangyayari pwedeng ang magiging decision making nila ay magiging successful, magiging maganda. So if they have large groups of people, so mas madaming idea sa mabibigay. Mas madaming idea mapagsasama-sama at para makabuo ng isang magandang decision making. So smaller groups are better suited to coordinating and facilitating the implementation of complex tasks. So the smaller groups are the group of people who are good in implementation of a complex tasks. Yan. Group decision making. Strengths. More complete information. Increased diversity of views. Higher quality of decisions. More accuracy. Increased acceptance of solutions. So that are the strengths of group decision making. And weaknesses, these are the weaknesses. More time consuming. So, more time consuming because dahil nga group silang nagde-decide, nagmi-meeting sila, madami silang minsan pagtatalo or di kaya madami silang diskusyon about sa kanilang agenda. Kaya there be a lot of time to be consumed. Increased pressure to conform. Domination by one or a few members. Ambiguous responsibility. So that are the weaknesses of group decision making. Yan. Ito naman yung group decision making, yung hindi dapat alisin. So, there is a major difference between group discussion, group decision making, group think, and group shape. In order to maintain a well-functioning group, one should encourage group decisions and collaborative decision making, but in the same place, should try to eliminate group think and group shape. So, makikita natin kung bakit dapat alisin yung group think at group shape because that are not good. Yan. So, group think, phenomenon in which the norm for consensus overrides the realistic appraisal of alternative course of action. Yan. So, sometimes we feel like speaking up in a meeting, classroom, or informal group, but we decide against it. Minsan masasabi natin na wag na lang. Kahit na mayroon naman tayong ideya, hindi na lang natin sinasabi. Why? Mainly, due to shyness, or we may have been victim of groupthink. The phenomenon that arises when group members become so immersed of seeking concurrence that the norm for consensus alters the realistic appraisal of substitute courses of action and the full expression of deviant, minority, or unpopular views. It worsens an individual mental efficiency, reality, testing, and moral judgment to the group pressure. So yan, nagkakaroon ng group pressure, kaya yun, parang nawawala ng confidence magsalita yung mga members. Dahil baka ganito, ayokong kumontra kasi sasang-ayon na lang ako sa kanila kaysa naman ma-judge nila ako. Parang ganun mangyayari sa group think. Kaya nalanong at makikinig. Hindi mo na sasabihin yung idea mo kahit na minsan sa tingin mo tama yung idea mo, pinapagsantabi mo na lamang. So, yan, group shift. A change in decision risk between the group's decisions and the individual decisions that member within the group would make can be either toward conservatism or greater risk. So yun, most of the time there are difference between individual decision making and group decisions. Group shift is the phenomena in which individual decisions make a way for exaggerated group decision. Group shift can be seen as a special case of groupthink. For example, ako, as an individual, I am clear that I don't want to smoke. However, when I am part of a group who regularly smoke, then they tend to create a pressure on me. Sometimes they also explain the benefits of the act and justify it by giving example. For example, binibigay nila yung pag nagyoyosi ka, nakaka-relieve yun ng stress. Ang sarap yung pagbusog. Parang ini-encourage ka nila. Kaya, yun, finally, I changed my decisions and started smoking and the process of continue. So, ayun. Parang dahil ito ay special case of groupthink, para din tong groupthink, kaso special case ng groupthink. Dahil nga sa pressure ng environment na aking kinabibilangan, ginawa ko, nag-go with the flow na lang ako sa kung anong trip nila para yun, makasabay ako sa kanila. Dahil syempre parang nakakahiya na minsan sa magbabarkada, ikaw lang din nainom, ikaw lang din nagyoyosi. Parang nagkakaroon ng pressure na magkikreate sa'yo ng decision para kahit gawin mo yung mga bagay na minsan against naman sa iyo. Symptoms of groupthink phenomenon. Group members rationalize any resistance to the assumptions they have made. Members apply direct pressures on those who express doubts about shared views or who question on alternative favored by the majority. So ayun, kahit na minsan sa group discussion, kahit na minsan meron kang idea na gustong i-share, minsan kinikim-kim na lang at sinasabi lang natin wag na lang because of pressure. Kasi ayong maiba yung tingin ng tao sa iyo dahil sa idea mo. Lalo't yung idea mo ay against sa idea ng karamihan. Members who have doubts of differing points of view keep silent about misgivings. So yun, go with the flow na lang, papabayaan na lang. So these are the group decision making techniques. The techniques to eliminate groupthink and group shapes. In order to eliminate groupthink and group shape from a group, we can use 4 different techniques that will help us make a collaborative decisions that is best for the group. These techniques are brainstorming, nominal groupthink, interacting groups, electronic meeting. So, interacting groups. Typical groups in which the members interact with each other face to face. So, yun. Siyempre, pagka tayo online class, pero now we are experiencing an online class, yun, na pagpasok. Pero, para sa akin, yung traditional learning system, gaya ng face-to-face classes, ay mas masaya at na kasi, especially when the groupings. Kasi, tuwing nagkaka-groupings kami, siyempre face-to-face yun, nagkaroon din ng bonding sa isa't isa. At habang nagkaroon ng bonding sa isa't isa, nagkakaroon kami ng interactions na dadala sa amin para makaklose ang isa't isa at maging malapit. So, when the groups are close to each other, para silang magkakaibigan na hindi nagtatago ng kanilang salubin. Sinasabi nila kung anong maganda at kung anong mali at tinatanggap nila ito ng maluwag sa kanilang kalooban. So, if you interact with the group, especially when the leader is make a way to make the group close to each other, when it comes to about this discussion, if they're close to each other, they can make a good decision making. Nominal group technique. A group decision making method in which individual members meet face to face to pull their judgment in a systematic but independent fashion. Yon. So, nominal group thinking. This technique is similar or parang katulad lang ng brainstorming. The brainstorming technique will be discussed next. Except that this approach is more structured. It motivates individual creativity. Members from the group, for namesake and operate independently, originate ideas for solving the problem on their own, in silence and in writing. Members do not communicate well with each other, so that strong personality domination is evaded. The group coordinator either collects the written ideas or writes them on a large blackboard so that each member of the group can see what the ideas are. These ideas are further discussed one by one in turn, and each participant is motivated to comment on these ideas in order to clarify and improve them. After all these ideas have been discussed, they are evaluated for their merits and drawbacks and each actively participating member is needed to vote on each idea and allot it rank on the basis of priority of each alternative solutions. The idea with the highest cumulative ranking is selected as the final solution to the problem. So yon, the nominal group technique is parang group discussion, kaso nga lang yung ideas parang brainstorming ng isang group para sa isa magandang decision making. Kaso nga lang yung kanila, ang pag-share nila ng idea ay sinusulat nila sa papel tapos ilalagay nila sa example sa harapan sa blackboard, kakapit or isusulat para makita ng lahat ng members kung ano yung ideas ng isa't isa, and they are free to comment or give suggestion for the to make the ideas become better or add ideas to make it better. And dahil nga madaming ideas yung nakalagay din sa unahan, kung ano yung majority ng ideas ang halos magkakatulad or yung ideas na the best ideas or yung pinakamaganda, yun na yung magiging selected as the final solution to the problem. At sasang-ayon naman yun ng lahat. Ayun. Brainstorming. Brainstorming, an idea generation process that specifically encourage any and all alternatives while withholding any criticism of those alternatives. Yun. So this technique includes a group of people, mostly between 5 and 10 in number, sitting around the table, producing ideas in the form of pre-association. The main focus is on generation of ideas and not on evaluation of these ideas. If more ideas can be originated, then it is likely that there will be a unique and creative idea among them. All these ideas are written on the blackboard with a piece of chalk so that all the team members can see every idea and try to improvise these ideas. Brainstorming technique is very effective when the problem is comparatively precise and can be simply defined. A complex problem can be divided into parts, and each part can be dealt with separate at a time. Yun. And lastly, the electronic meeting. A meeting in which members interact on computers, allowing for anonymity or comments and aggregation of votes. Yun. So, this is like what we are doing right now, the online class. We use Google Classroom. We use Google Meet to meet and interact to each other. So that we can share the ideas, we can learn from our teachers, and just like this, we are reporting, we apply what we are learned to our dearest professor, and yun, share the ideas of just like me, I share my ideas about this, So, ayun. Pa- Parating tong meeting face to face, kaso nga lang, ang gamit lang nito ay electronic gadgets like computers or laptops, cellphones, and etc. So, yun po. Thank you po. God bless everyone.
Tabi. Tabi.